So one more woman who could have become a victim of Steve Wright. How many more might there have been if he hadn't been caught? Well, joining me now from central London is Cari Mitchell from the English Collective of Prostitutes. Good evening to you. You hear her. How vulnerable are these as members of society?
Well, first of all, of course, our thoughts are with the families of the 5 murdered women tonight. Yes, of course, women are still vulnerable. In fact, the tragedy of this whole terrible scenario is that although we're glad that a man has been found, and taken to court, women don't feel safer because there are policies. They are now putting in place policies, starting in Ipswich, but around the country, which are in fact almost exactly replicate the policies which were in place at the time in Ipswich, which is a crackdown on clients, and a crackdown on women was actually going on at that time. But if there's a crackdown on clients, women are always driven underground. It's much more difficult to come forward and report any attacks, and under those circumstances, how are the police to know if there's another serial attacker going around? This is an absolute tragedy, and we are very fearful that women are still being murdered. I mean, there are many families in this country now who are still grieving the loss of their daughters. Many grandmothers, caring for grandchildren, because their daughters have been murdered. Over 60 women have been murdered over the past 10 years. Over 60 women who the police say were working as prostitute women, and that's very serious.
You're lamenting the crackdown, but you know that many people would say that prostitution is a scourge on many towns and cities, specifically the link with drugs as well, and they don't want the streets to be taken over with red light areas. Well,
when the murders took place, Ipswich really led the way. There was a completely compassionate, as everybody knows, a completely compassionate response. The public really grasped very profoundly that it was because those women were criminalised by the prostitution laws that they were so vulnerable. Local residents wrote to us and said they could see quite clearly that the police really didn't care at all about those women. They didn't care about the safety of those women. And in fact, the public has really moved forward, and it's the government which has moved backwards and is in fact trying to increase criminalisation. In the Criminal Justice and Immigration Bill, they are trying to bring in compulsory rehabilitation under threat of a possible imprisonment, and if that doesn't, women don't comply, they can be fined again. So they are increasing criminalisation instead of, what the public clearly wants is to, decrease criminalisation. And in fact, we think that the government should be looking at what's happened in New Zealand, where they have successfully decriminalised. And first of all, it's safer because women can come forward and report to the police without fear of arrest. The police say they are clearing up attacks much more quickly, and as a result, every woman is safer. And we have to, and on top of that, women are able to come off the streets if they want to, because they can work together, with other women.
Cari Mitchell from the English Collective of Prostitutes, appreciate your time, thank you. So tonight here in Ipswich there is justice for the victims of the Suffolk serial killer. 5 prostitutes, 5 young women murdered during a reign of terror by a man driven to take lives. Now that man